My name is Ileana Betancourt, and I want to welcome you today to Edulastic for Math. I work here at Edulastic, and we're really excited for what's in store during this next hour. I know people will continue to trickle in for the next few minutes, but we're going to go ahead and get started anyway. And I just want to let everyone know that everything will be recorded and then posted on our YouTube channel, and we'll also send it in a follow-up message. So everyone should be able to see the screen. We have a great lineup of teachers from around the country who are going to be sharing with us today on how they're using Edulastic in their classroom for math. And I'm really excited for what they have to share. Before we do get started, I want to take a look at who's here. So we sent out a poll. If you haven't seen the poll yet, find it and fill it out. So I'm going to end the poll in about 1 minute. Looking at the poll on my end, it looks like we have a lot of people who are brand new or just signed up for Edulastic, which is awesome. We have some people who have just given assessments or given several, and a good handful of people who have also used it regularly. So, and pushed it through. Okay, thank you. Yes, that's great. For everyone who's brand new, welcome. We're so glad to have you, and we hope you are able to discover the awesome ways that you can use Edulastic in your math classroom. For those who use it regularly, I'm sure you'll pick up something new today. And also I want to encourage you to share any tips or ideas or thoughts that you have throughout the webinar. It also looks like we have a lot of middle school math teachers as well as elementary school, high school teachers as well. And then a lot of people are new to Edulastic webinars. Welcome, we're so glad to have you here. And that'll be a great transition into some housekeeping for the webinar. So I don't know if you've been on a Zoom webinar or not before, but the chat is available for you to ask questions. And the way that our webinars work, we want this to be as friendly and open and idea sharing as possible, which is why we leave that chat open so that you guys who are on the ground in your classrooms using Edulastic and teaching math with your students can share tips and tricks with one another. So please use that as a resource. At the same time, we want you to be asking questions if there's something that you want to see or you want to learn more about, or when we get to the end, if there's something that you're still hoping to learn or you want us to show you, please put that in the Q&A box. And the Q&A box is also on that black menu in your Zoom dashboard. And if you put your questions there, they won't get lost in the chat. So please do that. Again, my name is Ileana Betancourt. I'm joined here in the office with Jan Moody, who will be on the chat to answer your questions, along with Jenny Cohen, who is one of our customer success managers. And we hope to make this a wonderful next hour for you. So hope you're comfortable. Hope you have your tea or coffee or some chocolate with you, whatever you like to do. Hi, everyone. Oh, with everyone saying hi, I also would like you to introduce yourself. So it says your name on there, but let us know where you're chiming in from. And then Jen and I thought it would be fun if everyone shared your favorite math symbol. So that could be a plus sign, minus sign, pi, whatever it may be. I'm sure there are a lot that you guys know that I don't know. I have a science background, so I do know more sciencey symbols. Square root, nice. I, infinity. Is that what that is? Cool, we have Michelle Delta from New Jersey. Oh, Delta, that's a cool one. Sarah from Missouri, welcome. Leslie from Springboro, Ohio, hello. Florida pie. I really like pie too. I made an apple pie with the apple tree in my backyard recently, and the lemons in my backyard too. Oh, is that your birthday? Who's that? Teresa? 314 birthday. Oh, you are a pie. That's amazing. Teresa pie. I love that. Cool. Tanisha, welcome. Brian, welcome. 90, welcome. I hope I'm saying that right. That's a really cool name. Sure, a decimal counts. I don't know, I think so.
I think so.
Okay, we approve.
It's important.
Colton, California, another Californian. We're tuning in from California today. Patricia, welcome. Pam, Illinois, squared, welcome. Nice, squared is fun. The minus sign, says David from Ohio, thank you. Welcome, Mary, squared. It is her birthday. That's so cool. Pie is so delicious. Lots of infinity fans. Very cool. The null sign. Wow, I don't really understand that one. Oh, she voice texted that one. Cool. Please be safe. Degree, no, more degrees. Awesome. So wonderful. Cool. I'm hoping at some point you'll get a chance to see the math question types on Edulastic, because they come with an option to use different signs. Hopefully you'll see your favorite math sign on that little panel that comes up during some of the Edulastic math questions. All right, I encourage you to keep on introducing yourself and your favorite sign in the webinar chat. I'm learning a lot. And we're going to continue on with the webinar. And again, now that you, oh wait, I forgot to let you guys know, when you type in the chat, please switch from all panelists to all panelists and attendees. And can you just write that in the chat too? I'm realizing that everyone can't see everyone's responses. That way everyone can see what you're saying. So again, switch from all panelists to all panelists and attendees with that little blue drop-down box. And then, yeah, I think we're good to go on housekeeping. Great. So I just want to go over a few quick things, because I know that our panelists are going to cover a lot of content, but just a couple overview pieces on adding Edulastic digital assessments to the math classroom, adding like the plus sign. Oh, hold on, sorry, I just saw in the comments, Leslie added she likes degrees because we have too few this evening. Hopefully it warms up. We'll send you some from California. We have a lot of degrees over here. Okay, so when using Edulastic, it allows you to declutter, save time, remember copying, cutting, pasting. Everything's in one place. Clear off the clutter. Everything's in one place. You get it instantly. You can go from here to here. I just like this little graphic. And then we have a bunch of technology enhanced items that are available for anyone who's on Edulastic using digital assessments. That's one of the big perks of digital assessment, is that you can engage students in different ways. So it's not just multiple choice or multiple selection anymore. You can also do text dropdown. You can also have typed up essay types, text entry true or false, and then there are a ton of math TEIs, so technology enhanced items that you can use on Edulastic when making assessments. So on here on the screen, you can see there's numeric, expression evaluator, fraction editor, asking students to show different fractions, graph plotter, number line, multi-part, range plotter, line plot, label an image, closed formula, closed matrix, label an image, numeric entry with units, drawing response. There's a whole bunch of different kinds. If you've used some of these question types before, I encourage you to share your favorite in the chat with the others who are on our webinar right now. When looking at the data of math teachers who are using Edulastic on the back end, we're able to see that multiple choice is the most popular question type for math. Despite having all these wonderful TEIs, it's just kind of the simplest and most traditional. There are a lot of teachers who are using advanced numeric, expression evaluator, text entry, and multiple selection as well. So those are the most popular math question types on Edulastic at the moment. And then one of the really cool things about using Edulastic, especially for those who are new to it, as you indicated in the poll initially, is that once students take assessments and tests, then you get this live dashboard view. So this is all free. Anyone can see this view. And what I did do is I put this in present mode to protect the students' identities. But as you can see here, there are all the question types here. So sorry, questions here, question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, how students did. So green means that they got the question right. Yellow means that they got it partially right. And then red means they got it wrong. Gray means they didn't answer it. So maybe they skipped over it, maybe they forgot to go back to it. And this blue line shows the amount of time it took. So overall, we can see the average score of this class was 78%. Not everyone's done yet. We had 5 out of 10 students submit their assessments. And this gives us a really quick and easy way to see what question students were able to answer easily. So it looks like question 5, that was a pretty easy question. Everyone got that right, or maybe it was taught really well in the classroom. And then let's see, question 4, it looks like maybe we need to revisit that and see if students understand what happened or if there's a misconception there. So that's a really cool thing about that instant data, and you can be sitting in your classroom while teachers are taking the assessment and watch these results roll in instantly. And then here, this is the different little student cards that show you how each student did. So it looks like Blue Shop, whoever that is about halfway through, maybe a little slower, or maybe had a slow start. So they're working on it, whereas Blue Magnet, Blue Moon, and a couple others have already completed it. and their assessments are ready for grading. That's what we see here. That's a quick look at the dashboard. And then this is a quick look at the question bank. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I know that we're going to have this shared a little bit later by one of our panelists. But I do want to point out that in the public and Edulastic certified library, there are over 73,000 questions that are available within mathematics. So that's a lot that you can pull from, or you can create your own assessments. That's the cool thing. You can create your own tests and quizzes, or you can choose from what's already available in the assessment library, or you can mix and match. All right. And now I'm going to pass it off to Cohen, who's our first panelist and presenter, and he's going to give a quick introduction of himself, and then we'll start sharing about his experiences with Edulastic and math in his classroom.
Hi, everybody. Can everybody see me?
Yep, we can see and hear you. Thanks, Corey.
Great. So I'm a sixth grade math teacher from Franklin Township in New Jersey. I started using Edulastic probably about 2.5 years ago, and I haven't stopped since. So I'm real excited to be here tonight and looking forward to continuing and doing this more and more each year. Could go to the next one now. So my goal tonight is to kind of share with you about how to actually choose your own questions from the question bank that is given there. Okay, so a lot of times teachers like to create their own assessments. I happen to love using the question bank that's already there. It's really easy to use. And it's got some great questions that are there already. Could go to the next one. So the first thing that I think everybody should do when they're looking at it is looking at the standards in their grade level. It's really easy. You could figure out what you want to do, and you could choose your own standard. Okay, so for instance, I'm just going to share the screen. It'll probably be a little bit easier just for me to walk through it as I'm talking about it.
Sounds good. Let me stop my share so you can share yours.
Can you see my screen?
Yep, we can see your screen.
Okay, great. So the first thing, I'm a sixth grade math teacher, so I'm going to just click on sixth grade. The good thing about this is when I have lower level students and they may not be on a sixth grade level, I could still give them fifth grade questions. I could give them fourth grade questions. Or if I have a really advanced student, I could give them a seventh grade question or an eighth grade question. Obviously, we need to be in the subject area. And for me, we're on the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, so that's what I would choose. Or you could just go ahead and choose your Math Common Core, whatever works for you. In there, I am then going to click on whatever standard I feel like I'm working on. Now, the good thing is you can click multiple standards, and it will give you questions for all of those standards. So just to make it easy for everybody, I'm just going to choose one standard. And as you can see, it's now circulating to what we have. So there are 405 questions that are in just this standard of 6NSA1. Okay. You can look at the different things here. Okay, so I don't bother looking at the collections. I just go for every question that is there and I look at them. I can look at my question types. If I want a specific type of question, I could put that there, multiple selection, and there are 8 questions that does that. For me purposely, when I choose my questions, I don't actually check off the question types or the depth of knowledge, because this way I could actually look at each question individually and choose what the best one is. For our school district, what we do is we do our small group instruction, small strategy group. So my whole class might be working on 6NSA1, but I might not want to give everybody the exact same question. I might want to give some an easier question, some a harder question, depending on what their level is. So I could create 3 different assessments for my students and use them and accordingly assign them to each individual person. This becomes really helpful for me because I do have an ICR setting where I have some special education students in my class. So what they could do might not be what my higher level kids can do. So I want to make sure that I'm giving them the proper questions that they're able to do as well. In addition to that, once I look at all of this, I look at if everybody sees here, here's the standards, here's the type of question that it is, and here's who it's by. Here's who actually made this. Now, I don't know this person, April Lane, at all. Might be a great question, but that's not what I'm going to look at right off the bat because I don't know them. So there are some really key ones that I know that are always going to be good. They're going to be higher order type of questions, and they're going to be more park-like, or for us, NJSLA-like, more of our state assessment-like. Carnegie Learning, great one to have. Okay, they usually have more higher order questions. NJ Model Curriculum, also very good questions. Let's see, Engage New York, phenomenal question. And this is great. This is a modeling question. Didn't even know that this was here, and this is actually something that I'm teaching in my classroom right now. The Engage New York questions, also really good ones. And then anything that you see that says park on it. Now, that doesn't mean that the rest of these questions are not good. So what I'm trying to say is, as you're going through them, you're going to find somebody that you know that you're happy with, that you think that person gives you great questions. You could search for those questions as well and try and add them. And you could continue doing that. Like, here's a park assessment question, right? So our school, our goal is every question has to be park-like. Right? So I know that the NJ model curriculums, the Engage New York questions, the Carnegie Learning questions, I know those questions are closely aligned with park assessments. So I purposely use all of those questions. Jeffrey Fett here. I don't know this person at all, but his name comes up all the time. So I am more likely, when I see his name attached to a question, to actually look at those questions a little bit more carefully to see if I like those questions. And you could go through the pages of them to see what they are, and if they're good. And as you can see, like Jeffrey Fett just came up 2 more times, right? So these are all questions, another one by him. Simone Gray, never seen this name before. Doesn't mean it's not a good question. It just means that I'm going to look at their question a little bit more carefully for myself. These are the questions that I kind of like to pull from and that I like to do. Like I said, if you want to look at a very specific type of question, expression evaluator question, I'm going to click on it. All of these questions are expression evaluator. So there's 61 questions that are expression evaluator questions. I could look through them. I could figure out what I want to do. My depth of knowledge questions, right? For us, for my school, for my classes, I look more at strategic thinking questions and extended thinking questions. The skill and concept are good, the recall are good, but I want my students to think a little bit more. So in this standard, there's 9 strategic thinking questions. And I could just click on them and look at them to see what they are. Okay, and just go through and I could choose whichever question I think is the most valuable for you. Like I said, I love doing these because it makes my life a little bit easier. I pull even when for our district, we have to use a certain program for our actually unit assessments. But when I don't make my kids take the assessment on Edulastic, I pull questions from Edulastic to put on my unit assessments. They're great questions. They're easy to find. And the students like these questions. They like doing it because it's more interactive for them. I think that's kind of everything that I have for you. I'm going to put my email in the chat as well. If anybody has any questions moving forward, feel free to email me at any time, and I will be more than happy to get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
That was great, Corey. Thank you. Do you mind clicking on some of those questions and just showing the preview so people can get a view of what it looks like?
Sure.
So clicking on that little next to add, I think you can do it one by one. Or so when you're browsing for questions, that's how it looks. But when you're actually previewing it, it shows you what it will look like to the students, which I just wanted to point out quickly.
So here's the preview for it. I kind of went the long way around to do that. Let me just show you the quicker way to do that. So if you just click right here on the little magnifying glass, that'll actually take you to the preview. And here's what the kids will actually see as they're doing their assessments.
Great, thank you. Great, and any questions specifically for Corey? We can get to all the questions at the end too. So if anyone has any questions, that'd be great. Corey, someone did compliment you in the chat. They said, you're very clear and hands-on. So thank you for walking us through and showing us how you look at questions and analyzing them. That was great. And for anyone, again, if you're asking questions, you can put them in the Q&A. You can also type them into the chat. Great, thank you, Corey. And then I think we'll move along because we have a lot to get through still. Yep. And at the end, we'll open up for questions. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again.
Me too. There you go.
There we go. Okay, great. So this is what we just went over, choosing questions for assessments. And as Corey mentioned, you can go by standard. You can look in different collections, Edulastic Certified Library, Free Library, school or district or private library. You can look at different question types. So those are those technology enhanced items that we looked at earlier. Depth of knowledge, you can choose that, or question type levels as well. And Corey also pointed out this already too. Oops. All right, and now I'm going to hand off to our next presenter, who is Latasha Rowland. Latasha, why don't you hop on and unmute yourself, and I'll let you take it away.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Cool, great. I am Latasha Rowland. I teach 5th grade middle school math and science this year in Kansas City, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, but I teach in Raytown. Missouri is a suburb outside of Kansas City. And I'm just going to talk about how I use Edulastic in my classroom. I've been using it for about ever since my first year here. This is my 4th year at this school. And when my principal mentioned it to me, it was something that I immediately fell in love with. So I'm going to take my screen and go ahead and share my slides. Can everybody see them? Are they popping up?
Yep, we can see.
All right, cool. So just as a key, like I typically have 3 types of assessments that I give. Here at my school, I do a benchmark assessment that previews the content I haven't taught or the stuff I've taught throughout the year. And then I do a unit assessment, which assesses obviously the unit. And then my mini mastering quizzes are just spot checks throughout the unit. But the main goal of how I use Edulastic in my classroom is basically to create and administer balanced assessments. A few years back, my principal came to us and said, we are struggling on certain particular types of questions on our state assessments. So Edulastic provided me that great tool where I can provide my students with enough at-bats to try to get comfortable with these different types of questions, as well as it gives me an idea of how to give accurate data, pinpoint data on where I need to drive my instruction on teaching these type of questions, but importantly, teaching the content as well. The cool feature that I want to say they added last year to Edulastic is this little infographic that you see to the side when you're building your assessments. I love this feature. The first year I used it, we did not have it, but it lets me know just a breakdown of how many question types and how many standards. So if you look below where it says 20 questions, it lets me know what type of standards I'm putting on my quiz or test so that I'm not overloading the assessment with a particular type of question or test, question type by standard. I couldn't get a full screen, so this is what also is below as you scroll down on that bar. This lets you know the actual question type. So about 3 years ago, like I said, when we were getting our state assessment data back, we were scoring 20% less on accuracy on the 2 question types that the blue arrows are showing. Particularly, our kids had a struggle with drag and drop and multiple select. I initially came to Missouri from North Carolina. At that time, we weren't using assessments on the computer. We were still doing pencil, paper, and Scantrons. So all I was used to was multiple choice. So when I came to Missouri, I just had no clue what these questions looked like. I didn't know what they were requiring my students to do. So when I was introduced to Edulastic, it provided me with that essential thing that I needed to see. So this is a typical multiple select question. And it's basically at the end of the question, it says select all answers that apply. Our kids will only select one, or they will see one of two, but 9 times out of 10 is 2 to 3 answers that are accurate within that question. And that's where our kids really begin to struggle. So it's not that they didn't understand the concept, they just wasn't particularly well-versed on how to attack this type of question. And then the next question is a drag and drop. Technology was a struggle bus for these kids because it was the first time they were using computers to take an assessment. So, and 9 times out of 10, prior to me coming here, most times they only took assessments in math on the computer when it came to the state assessment. So I use Edulastic heavily, and I still use it heavily so that they can get repetitive practice with a computer-based test. And so just teaching them how to drag and drop a simple number. It looks, in my mind, it looks very easy in theory, but for a 10-year-old, sometimes it's not as explanatory as it seems. So this is just an example of a drag and drop question. Last year, I started to look at some data. So last year, as I'm preparing for this, my students with the drag and drop, when their first benchmark, first out the gate in August, they were at 42% accuracy. By the Unit 3 exam, halfway through the year, and at that point, we only have about 4 units. I'm having kids now understanding how to attack that question at 93% accuracy. So over time, multiple at-bats, quizzes, tests, benchmarks, they're getting multiple touch points with this type of a question, regardless of the content I'm teaching. But because they're having multiple at-bats, they're that much more comfortable with that assessment type question, and they're more apt to attack it when it comes to the state assessment. So this year, last year, so we did multiple select last year as well at the beginning of the benchmark. This is one we typically struggle with more. We're at 39% accuracy. By the 4th exam, which is the 4th unit and my final unit within the year, my students were at 77% last year. And so it's one of those things where I'm constantly trying to get them more reps with these types of questions. I actually try to do an equilibrium of half my test multiple choice and the other half is scattered between multiple select, drag and drop, text entry, numeric, something where, because these are all the types that they'll face on our state assessment. And so this year, right now, after our first benchmark, we're only into Unit 2, but I only have data from Unit 1. our students, after the benchmark, are halfway, like on drag and drop, they've increased their percentage accuracy by doubling it, more than doubling it. So they're getting a little bit more comfortable after three quizzes and then leading up to the unit exam. And then right now, I only have one because I did not put one on the benchmark. So right now, as you can see, we're still really struggling. And after this is me being here on year 4. But this is a reality of I'm one of the few teachers who utilizes this system heavily within the building. People use it for exit tickets, but I utilize it heavily for assessments solely. So every year I'm having to reorient kids to these type of assessment types. That's it. I'm sorry. That's it. That's all I have.
That was fantastic. Thank you, Latasha. And what powerful data too. That's really great that you're able to see that before and afterwards to get an idea of what students are doing and where they're at. Some compliments coming in through the chat for you. You can check them out. I think we'll continue to decide to do questions at the end, but if you do have questions now, feel free to put them in the Q&A or you can put them in the chat and we'll get to them. But again, we'll do more questions at the end. I'm going to transition over to Deena Morrison. Deena, go ahead and unmute yourself, turn on your video, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you.
I'm Deena Morrison, and I am living in Klamath Falls, Oregon, down Southern Oregon, and this is my 19th year of teaching. This is about my 5th year using Edulastic, and I teach mostly 4th grade, but I've jumped back and forth between grade levels. So I'm kind of going to piggyback on everything that Corey and Latasha said. Yep, thank you. If you want to switch screens, that's perfect. Thanks. So my 4th grade team, there's 3 of us 4th grade teachers, and our 4th grade team has just jumped on board with me in using Edulastic because they were able to see the super powerful data that we can pull from using the assessments in class. And this year, actually, okay, so a few years ago, we started doing standard-based grading in our district. So all of that data really helps us with our grading, but we also started doing math RTI this year. So we are looking at this data to put our students into our RTI groups. And so you can go ahead and switch. So again, you've kind of already seen this graph and this data, but this is a test that I actually just gave my kids last week. And again, piggybacking off of what Corey said, when I give an assessment, I actually have to use an Engage New York assessment. So that's what I tell my administrators, all my questions are pulled from Engage New York so that it is considered an Engage New York assessment. So this was our mid-module 3 assessment. And again, what I love about Edulastic is it gives that immediate feedback, and I can stop and see when I was doing this specific test last week. Question number 2, all my kids were missing. And so I went in and I'm like, okay, why are we all missing question number 2? And then like Latasha was saying, it had to do with the question type. So I had to actually stop and teach them how to do that question type because they weren't missing it because they didn't know the math. They were missing it because they didn't understand the question type. So we stopped and we talked about the question type, and I actually think it was a sequencing question, but definitely makes a difference if they understand those different types of questions that they're going to be seeing on the test. And what I noticed on my test, this one, I know that I think Aliana talked about at the beginning that green is correct, red is incorrect, yellow is partially correct. And then the blue, this was new to me because you'll see a lot of blue on my students' data, that you can actually go in and hand score that because there's a scratch pad available on it. So they may have the answer right, they may have the answer wrong, but there's an actual scratch pad that the students can use. So you can go in and look at their work that they did on the scratch pad and maybe give them partial credit for something, but you can also see the mistakes that they might be making on their scratch pad. So it's like their note paper that they can use. So also another really helpful teaching tool if you can see what kind of mistakes your students are making. And that's not available on all questions. So that's why just some of those had those, the blue part on it. Okay, and then we can go to the next one. So this is the overall class data again, and you can see the green is correct answers, yellow is partially correct, and red is incorrect. But the blue dots that go up and down the screen are showing me how much time how much time they spent on each question. So again, even that in itself provides me some data of going, okay, question number 3, they are actually all getting right, and they're really not spending that much time on it. So, you know, that's a pretty strong standard. Question number 6 and 7, same thing. They spent very little time on those, but we're getting those correct. So those are probably standards that I can check off at proficient for most of my students. Go ahead and go to the next one. Thank you. And so again, because we are using this data for our RTI groups, this is one of the reports that we can get. And I don't know, I think it's probably for the premium subscription, but immediately my little pie chart shows me, you know, okay, these are my proficient kids, these are at grade level, and these are below grade level for proficiency on this specific test. So this was just on this one specific test. And I can see, again, my average score for the class and my average, I guess that's it, the average student score and the average score for each student. And then you can see up at the top where it has the different types of reports, and that's what I'm going to go into next. So go ahead and click to the next one. So this is the question analysis. So again, it shows me question number 11 is a question I definitely need to investigate and find out what was going on with my class. Definitely question 11, question 12. Again, I can see definite red flags there. Even question number 4, because again, they spent so much time on it that I would probably want to go in and check those. And in one of the other reports, I actually think it's in the question analysis. If you scroll down on the question analysis, it tells you what standard question 11 was and question 12. And so I can go back, and like Corey was saying, I can go back and pull up just that standard and reteach that standard. Let's go ahead and go to the next screen. So this is the next part of that question analysis that I was just talking about. So it tells me that question 11 is standard NBT A3 and NBT B5. And again, that only 8% of my students got that correct. So I know that that's definitely something that I need to go back and reteach. Again, I see somebody ask, what is RTI? It's response to intervention. So it's how we pull our math groups. So basically, RTI is when we have our below grade level, on grade level, and above grade level kids, and we break them into groups. And so for this, again, we use the standards data to break them into their groups. So we can say, okay, we have these 12 kids that need to work on what would be question number 12. They need to work on OA, A2, and we can target that standard with those specific kids. But again, obviously, question 11, I need to reteach the whole class. All right, go ahead and go to the next one. Again, same kind of idea, get the reports by standards. Oh, go back one. That's it, perfect. One more forward. So report by standards, again, I know exactly which standards I need to reteach here. That question number 11 was definitely something that we will need to go back and look at. Go ahead and go to the next screen, one forward.
Sorry about that. I was trying to respond to something in the chat and it was going forward. Next,
I think
sorry.
Two slides forward, I think.
2 slides forward. Okay, thank you.
Okay, one more. Sorry, Alana.
Oh, are we here?
Yep, we're here.
Oh, good. Okay.
So each of those rows is a student data, and I just took the student names off. But again, it breaks it down by standard. And I can really see, okay, here's the kids that are in red, they really need to reteach the standard. And of course, the kids that are in green, then I can move on, and we can move on to higher level standards, move on to different standards. But again, we use it for our intervention groups all through 4th grade. The other 4th grade teachers would give the same assessment, and then we can break our kids up into, okay, well, I'll be realistic. These 30 kids need to work on this standard. These 25 kids need to work on this standard, and these 25 kids need to work on this standard. And we take turns as a PLC, our 4th grade team, creating the assessments. So usually we can't always do it weekly, but bi-weekly for sure, so that we can assess what they've done over 2 weeks. And our math intervention time is outside of our core math time. So we would do this during core math time, see what we need to reteach, and then do the 30-minute reteaching lesson based on this data. So I think there's one more slide. Nope. Okay.
Oh, now I'm going all over the place. Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to say? You said there's
No,
something.
like I said,
Okay.
Edulastic is just amazing for the things that are all coming at us right now with math intervention groups and standard-based grading. The data that it provides is amazing. And again, taking off Latasha, preparing them for the test, it gives them those different question types, and it really, really helps prepare them for the test.
Awesome. Thank you, Deena. Yep. I'm just going to go back here for 1 second. Just so everyone knows, those reports that Deena was sharing are from the premium version. So just so you're aware. Thank you, everyone. These were really, really great presentations by Latasha, Cory, and Deena. Please enter your questions into the chat now, or if there's anything else you'd like to see live, we can do that as well. I'm going to jump back down to here. I do want to just point out that we have webinars coming up for social studies, ELA, and science, so you can share that with your colleagues. And if you're looking for additional training resources to make Edulastic work for you, we have the Teacher Training Hub. Jan's going to share that link in the chat so you can check it out. It has additional getting started videos. It has additional webinars and events that are coming up. There are teaching strategies. There are all sorts of resources for math teachers and teaching math on our blog. And you can also join our Edulastic Facebook community to connect with other teachers. And you can also check out some of the new features that we're putting out as well. So you can stay tuned on that. And also I encourage you to follow us on YouTube, because we are always pushing out new tutorial videos there as well. Cory says, don't forget Twitter. Of course not. Please stay in touch with us on Twitter. It's a really great place and resource. Who here heard about the webinar on Twitter? Out of curiosity. I'm gonna try my video again. So a great place to share resources and all of that. I'm gonna encourage all the panelists to join us back on video and audio, and we'll take questions if anyone has them. Oh, someone's curious to learn more about the Scratchpad. Do any of our panelists have experience with the Scratchpad? Maybe could share.
Yeah, my students play around with it. It's a great tool. I mean, I give them scratch paper to use, but it's actually a great tool for them. If you have a system where you can like use your pencil, and it's just hard with the mouse, but the kids can actually show their work, especially for those questions that Deena were talking about where you can score it. I can see their work right there on the screen. So when I'm looking at their question, even if it's not a scoreable one where I could see what they're doing right there in the question. So when I'm looking through their test, I can say, okay, this is how they answer the question. So it works like paper and pencil, but it's just on the computer screen. And some kids like it, some kids don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what I would say I agree with. It's something else you have to teach them how to use. I mean, you have to train them on how to use it. And I think, again, down the road after having some experience using it, I think a lot of the kids will actually end up choosing it, but it's that learning curve still.
Yes, and you can enable that for questions, or you can disable it too. So that's an option for you. Kay Crook said, thank you for answering that. Okay. Next question is, do any of the presenters create their own assessments? If so, what do you use to assist you in creating the question?
I don't create my assessments. I use the bank that's there. There's so many questions that are there, and I'm under the opinion of why recreate the wheel? It's there and they're good questions to use, so I use them.
I do both. I do create my own tests sometimes. And again, like I said, and I know Cory said sometimes he has to use his own curriculum also. But for like our exit tickets, because we use Engage New York, all of our whole curriculum is online digitally anyways. And so we can basically use the Snap. The Snap?
Snap quiz.
Snap quiz. Snapchat. That's not it. The picture, and basically take a picture of our exit ticket or take a picture of our quiz right from Engage New York and upload that into Edulastic. But actually writing my own questions, I agree with Cory. I wouldn't actually write my own questions. There's just so many options, and you can filter them down by standards so narrowly that
Yeah. I typically do a little bit what Deena said, a little bit of both. I do for my quizzes tend to write, especially if I'm teaching something in a specific manner. Right now I'm teaching comparing fractions, and I do teach in a specific manner. So I do put that type of questions right directly on. But if I come across the multitude of questions that Edulastic have, I've been a part of different systems before. This is probably the most vast. If there's a question that I want to manipulate to make it look like something I taught, you can duplicate the question and recreate it to make it your own. So I mean that, and over the past 2 years, I've done that more than creating my own questions. If I find a really good question, like, oh, this is great, but I want to make it my own, I just duplicate it and then recreate it for my own purposes.
Great, thank you. And yeah, as I think touched on here, you can also tweak any questions that you want. So you can copy, duplicate it, I think as Latasha just said, and adjust it so it fits your classroom, which I would encourage you to read through all the questions before you do assign it. That way you know it works for you and your students. All right, so we answered that one. Thank you, Kenneth, good question. Okay, Jason asks, how can I reuse an assessment and be able to go in it and edit the assessment from year to year? Is the only way to duplicate the assessment? Anybody want to talk to that?
If it's in your library, you can edit it at any time.
Mm-hmm.
If it's in your library, there's just an edit button and you can go in and edit it.
So it stays in your account and with your account from year to year.
Yeah.
And also remember, because with Edulastic, you're using sort of like a classroom type of setting. So if you don't, I'm blanking on the word right now. If you don't get rid of that classroom, if you don't archive the classroom, that was the word I was looking for. If you don't archive the classroom, then you still have access to that assessment from years previous.
That's true. Good point. Thank you. I hope that answers your question, Jason. And then Kenneth Williams says, I teach ELL students. What are some considerations that I need to keep in mind when using Edulastic?
So we were actually just talking about that today in my team plan and everything, because we do have a lot of ELs in our district and stuff. It's just like modifying any assessment. You know, you have to know what level your students are and what they can and cannot do. You know, depending on where they are in the ELL program will depend on, you know, you might need a little bit of an easier thing. I'm not sure, is there a translation mode in Edulastic that like you could translate a question into Spanish?
There's not translation mode, but you can read out loud if that helps, text-to-speech. That's a premium feature, I will note. And you can also really easily add visuals if that helps as well. And I do know of people who have used other apps or tools to translate entire assessments on Edulastic. We have an article about that on the blog too. I think Jan can throw that into the chat. So anyone else in the audience has experience with this too, feel free to chime in the chat. Thanks, Corey. And perfect timing that you guys were just chatting about that today. Are there any other questions in the chat? How do you post an assessment to students?
Well, you said, like, I merge everything with my Google Classroom. So everything, we're a Google Apps for Education school district. So once my kids are logged in through Google, that's one of the first things I do during the school year. I just simply, we bookmark the assessment and I assign the assessment straight to them. So every kid is in my classroom. So they don't have to like log into Edulastic or anything like that. It's literally, they sign in with their Google account and it's right there on their dashboard. And they can go look at prior assessments to see what they did prior to. So that's kind of how I post assessments to them.
If anyone wants to walk through these kind of things too, we can do that quickly. We have about 10 minutes left. Or we can also direct you to some videos and resources that show you how to assign assessments on YouTube. Isadora asked in the chat, how do you monitor students from not utilizing Google to get their answers?
So, I mean, it depends on the program. We have a web monitor in our district. We use something called GoGuardian. Not sure if that's a free service or not, but that's something we use in our district. So I could actually, while they're on their computers, I could visually see their screens and monitor everything that they're doing. I could also lock their screens. I could delete tabs from them and everything like that. So we use that a lot. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that you guys just sent an email out or a blog post within the last couple of weeks about making the screens so that they couldn't go on something else.
There is kiosk mode. So if you have
That's
Chromebooks, you can go right into kiosk mode. You can download that for free on the Google App Store, I think is what it is. And then there's also Secure Exam Browser. That one is, I think you have to have either premium or enterprise. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jenny or Bill, please, in order to use that one. And that would be work for Apple computers, PCs, all that.
You do need that, and it would be implemented. It's best implemented at a district level or a school-wide level, but it can be done on a individual by one teacher on an individual classroom. It's just a little more clunky.
Okay, thanks, Jenny.
Is the kiosk mode the best way to do it?
Kiosk mode is for Chrome, and Safe Exam Browser or GoGuardian. A lot of our districts use GoGuardian as well. But it's an either or situation. It's not the best solution to try to put both in a school or a district.
Okay.
And these kind of questions, I'll just point out actually, hi, I'm Jenny for everyone on, these kind of questions can be by keyword. You can search in the bottom left corner of the app when you're logged in and click on the little question mark. And what we've done is as questions like this come in, we use the phrases that you guys use to ask us the questions and support. And we make that like the headline of the article. So it's easy and pretty intuitive to find some of these topics. And that is in the little question mark on the left side. It'll take you to videos, to articles, etc.
Yeah. And we don't, because I'm strictly using it mostly at my school as an assessment tool piece, I haven't experienced, out of the 2.5 years I've used it, I've experienced one student this year who utilized their calculator of their Chromebook to answer questions. And I rely heavily on paper. Like you show your work on paper and then you answer your question because I want them to get from paper to test. And then I just simply have the student redo the work. And halfway through, he's like, yeah, I use my calculator, because his answers just did not match up with what was showing on his paper. And so that's kind of how I've kind of navigated that. But I typically circulate it. Most kids that I've seen utilize it in the fashion. I haven't had any kids search or Google. They're locked in when they're taking this assessment. But that may be an upper grades thing. I don't know.
It's definitely a middle school thing because
okay.
we definitely have the kids doing that all the time, and that's why I stay on GoGuardian if they're doing something on there, because this way I can monitor, I can close their tabs, lock their screens, things like that.
Nice.
I have a question. What are some of each of your favorite question types to use?
So, I mean, like I said before, I mean, for me, like the park assessment questions are the big one. You know, we're doing everything to prepare our kids for their state exam. But I find that the Engage New York, the NJ model curriculum are very closely aligned to park questions. So if I can't find a park question, I will go to one of those very quickly.
Okay. And in terms of the technology enhanced items that you're using, so like drag and drop or multiple choice or expression
For me,
evaluator?
it just depends on the type of standard that I'm working on.
Okay.
You know, for instance, like if we're doing dividing fractions, I want them to be able to put an answer in there, maybe use Scratchpad, you know, maybe I'll throw some multiple choice questions in there for them. But like a drag and drop question just doesn't really work for a multiple, you know, for a dividing fractions question. So it really just depends on what standard, you know, I'm looking at to figure out which questions are the best questions that I like to use.
Thanks.
And I'll go with like what Latasha was saying too. It's those, just practicing those questions that they don't ever see. So mine was the sequencing thing. I did a sequencing question in science, and it was, again, a learning experience for me because the kids didn't know, was the sequencing. Did it start at the top or did it start at the bottom? And so that was a real learning
Definitely.
experience for me of, oh, I have to be more clear in the directions or make sure the directions are clear that no, number one starts at the top or number one starts at the bottom. It was a water cycle question, but they didn't know which order it was.
Yeah. I primarily, like, as the ones I focused on is like, that's primarily like my, any technology enhanced, because I don't, each year it just varies with the state assessment here, what type of questions we're getting. They're like half the assessments will be multiple choice, but then the other half, 50% of the assessments could be an array of text entry to drag and drop to multiple select to open response. And this year we're actually adding a performance event to our state assessment. So like I try to do an intermix so they can get used to all of them. But my favorite ideally would be the drag and drop, the multiple select, and the text entry, because it's just so many multiple variations of those that I've seen on state tests and that I see on Edulastic. You really can't fully prepare them for it. So, but giving them the multiple at-bats, the different looks at those types really helps them with the state test.
Great, thank you. Any other final questions? Here. All right, if there, oh, I think we have another one in the Q&A. Someone did ask earlier, can you add audio to a question? You can do that through embedding audio from that you added on another site like SoundCloud. And Jan entered in the link for that. I think everyone should be able to see that in the Q&A. At the freemium level, are teachers able to share assessments? Anyone want to answer that? I can answer that too. You can share it within your school or district, and teachers can access those. So let me just show you what that looks like on my screen. I'll send a link as well. And Jan will send a link as well. So when you create an assessment, we'll just create math tests. Oops.
And also with the premium level, you can share with the co-teacher as well.
Yeah, so the premium, you can have a co-teacher where you can both edit it. Have you been using that, Corey, or have you had?
I have been,
experience?
yes.
Okay. So if you're creating your assessment, then when you go ahead and so you can preview your assessment here if you wanted to. When you go to publish it, you can share it with specific users. This is a new feature we just added. You can add people's names in here or their username or email address, and they'll get an email that you've shared the assessment with them. You can keep it private. You can share it within your school. You can add it to your district, or you can share it with the entire Edulastic community. And whichever way you share it determines how many people can have access to it. And you can easily then take the link and then send that to your friend or colleagues, or they can find it in their library later when they're searching the item bank. Does that answer your question, Kenneth? All right, awesome. Well, we're coming to the end of the hour. So I just want to remind you to connect with us here. And you can look for future videos, tutorials on YouTube. We'll be posting the recording there. I also want to say again, thank you so much to our presenters who joined us, our Edulastic Innovator team members, Corey, Latasha, Deena. Thanks so much for being part of it and sharing your insights. It's always so wonderful to learn from you and to see the cool things that you're doing with your classroom, with your students in your classroom. So thank you so much for everything.
You're welcome.
And have a great day, everyone. Thanks for spending this hour with us.